Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Nate, and welcome back to another weather forecast discussion, this time for February 10th, 2022. Now, consistency is increasing as a potential snowstorm could move on through the mid-Atlantic, as well as a multi-day severe weather event with the potential of it turning into an outbreak with tornadoes is possible here sometime from mid to the end of next week. So without further ado, let's get straight into the models. Date and time is above me in Eastern, so consider the following with that. We have our clipper that's moving on through into portions of Manitoba and Ontario, also creating some winter weather for portions of the Midwest. That's going to continue to be the case here as that clipper continues to expand in coverage, and it will impact portions of the Great Lakes as well. So definitely something to where you guys are going to have to watch out for that. If you're in Toronto, if you're in Windsor, Detroit, all the way over into places near Ottawa and Montreal, you guys really need to watch out for some wintry precipitation that can move on through that could limit visibility. But otherwise, if you're in the green areas, you guys are just getting some regular rain, so just nothing really too concerning from that for the most part there. You can see from that entire swath our maximum snow totals for this event, and it isn't really all too significant across the board. You could see some areas get into about 3 to 5 inches of snow possible in some of the darker blues, and even some areas in the purples and pinks, maybe 5 to 8 inches of snow is possible as well. Maybe a little bit further east of the Thunder Bay areas. So just something to monitor if you guys are over there in the portions of central Ontario. But otherwise, if you guys are over here along the eastern shores of any of the Great Lakes, you guys also need to watch out too, because you guys could potentially see some snow as well. And it's not just Lake Michigan that I just circled. It's also in places near Erie, Ontario, Superior, and Huron. So just watch out for that if you guys can. So now let's transition here. You can see the Euro on the left-hand side just for general guidance, as well as the GFS on the right-hand side here. We're going to want to try and take a look at both of these models to get an idea as to what could potentially happen. If we see a lot of similarities, then we can probably guess that it's probably going to be accurate. So let's go ahead and just see as to how this plays along here. As the clipper moves on through portions of Quebec, you can see here in portions of the mid-Atlantic that snow starts to kind of become widespread within a lot of this area here. So now we're going to take a look at two different models to try and figure out as to what could be the most accurate solution from all of that. If we see a lot of similarities, then we can potentially concur that most of the stuff could probably happen. So we have the Euro model on the left and the GFS model on the right. So pay attention here as the clipper that we were just talking about moves on through towards the north and east into portions of Quebec. And this is really interesting here, guys, because watch what happens in the mid-Atlantic. Boom, a lot of snow that starts to pop out here, not just for a long period of time, but for a short period of time that can create some significant visibility issues. If we zoom in a little bit, I want to point out here that some of the models do say there could be some residual snow over here into portions of Arkansas, eastern Texas, as well as northern Louisiana. So that'll be something interesting to note, as well as into portions of Mississippi and Alabama. But the snow really doesn't start picking up across portions of the mid-Atlantic until about late Saturday evening into Sunday. And as this continues to push on through, you can see how the snow only becomes even more widespread as this pushes off into the early morning hours and into the afternoon hours as well. So if you guys live in the portions of DC, Roanoke, Richmond, even into portions of upstate North Carolina, you guys need to watch out for some potential snow that could move on through. And even southern Jersey, all right? Portions near Wildwood and Atlantic City, even towards portions near Camden and even Philly, Delmarva, you guys need to watch out because there could more than likely be some snow that could move on through your general vicinity. And this could even reach up into portions of New England as well. So this is definitely something I'm going to have to continue to monitor. But for the most part, we do know that there will be a snowstorm of some kind somewhere within this general environment, and we're just going to have to continue to monitor as to what the specifics could be as this plays on through. And you can see how this actually moves out by the time we get towards the early morning hours of Monday, with some residual snow showers possible across the general area. Now, if you notice, I'm not saying this is going to be a major snowstorm, and the reason being is because we have the tale of two models. This is the reason why we tried to look at two different outputs or two different opinions to try and get a general consensus as to what could potentially happen. And you can see one model is a lot more intense than the other. The GFS has about, I'd say, 7 to 8 inches of snow across portions of the Shenandoah Mountains, and you have the Euro over here which says you don't have a whole lot, 2 to 3 inches at best in some areas. So that's kind of the reason why I'm not sounding the alarm here at all. Although the consistency here for the most part is that some people here will see some snow showers of some kind. So now let's head back to the simulated reflectivity here. We'll play this out here from Sunday into Monday. You can see the snowstorm starts to move on through, but then this is when things start to get really interesting. In the Pacific Northwest, near areas along Vancouver Island, British Columbia, even towards portions of Washington State and Oregon, you can see that there's a lot of precipitation that starts to surge on through. So Monday morning into Monday afternoon and Monday evening, that's when you guys can start to get some precipitation that can move on through, some of which could be wintry if you're in the higher elevations. But if you're along the coast, you're more than likely going to get some regular precipitation, and that could create some flash flooding within some of the areas if a lot of that precipitation gets consolidated. And then this just basically leads up towards this entire event, because what happens is as that system moves on through, that low pressure system also moves inland, and then boom, my goodness, here from the 16th to the 17th, Guys, I gotta say this here real quickly, all right? And I'll show you guys why to support my thesis. But Thursday is the day to watch. The 17th, all right, that could potentially turn into a tornado outbreak if things continue to go the way they are. Because in my mind, I'm thinking that there's nothing really limiting this a whole lot. I think there's going to be a plethora amount of energy come that day. There's a significant dry line that's going to move on through in this low pressure system. Well, I mean, it speaks for itself. It's a pretty low pressure. And so we got probably some sort of severe weather that's going to move on through, and it could even be a tornado outbreak. And on the other hand, just to draw light to the opposite end of this, I talked about how there could be some winter weather potential with this as well in some of my previous videos. And you see, according to the Euro, well, there you go. You have freezing rain, and you have snow on the northern end of that warm front. Not as much for the GFS, though. You could get some wintry precipitation, but it's not as organized, at least until it starts to congeal a little bit further off later on into the week, to when it actually becomes a lot more significant as it pushes off towards the north and east and in towards southern Ontario and the Great Lakes. So it's just something we're going to have to continue to monitor based off of the snowy impacts and even the freezing rain impacts. The wintry precipitation, that's still a bit of an unknown. Where exactly that could be is very much so an unknown. But the severe weather, I mean, I nailed it right on the head when we issued the forecast last week on Friday. So when we issued that forecast, I said that somewhere down here in the southern plains into the southeast, you guys are probably going to see some severe weather. And I stand by that claim. All right, you guys are more than likely going to get some severe weather from this system. Both models are showing it. And in this case, I'm locking it in. So how this all unfolds here is with the wind shear. The wind shear patterns are pretty active as we start to transition to a more active phase for severe weather. And in order to take a look at that jet stream, we're going to be taking a look at the 500 millibar wind shear, which is about 6 kilometers above ground level. Now, this is what's currently happening right now, and you can tell because that clipper system that we were talking about in the beginning of the video is right over the Great Lakes. You can see this big dip in the jet stream, and it creates a bit of a trough that moves on through. And usually what's associated with troughs is, well, low pressure systems. So we do have that activity that is elongated throughout that front. And it's just something that we're going to have to continue to monitor as this plays out. Now, on the other hand, I want you guys to draw light over here towards portions of the west coast of the United States. There's a bit of a ridge here, which is the opposite of a trough. You can see how we have this general looping characteristic of clockwise flow, and that is a high pressure system there. So watch where this high pressure system goes. Instead of it staying in place, it is actually going to shift over time further and further to the east. And when that happens, it allows a low pressure system to come and ride along the west coast. And usually what happens there when a high pressure system sets up over portions of the southeast, it actually allows that low pressure system to dig through the central portions of the United States and create severe weather for areas to the south and east of it, which in this case is right where we indicated before in that box. So let's play this out here. You can see it has moderate wind shear as it moves on through portions of the western United States, but then as it deepens and ejects on through, well, that's when wind shear starts to become rather significant within some areas. More than likely, somewhere around the frame of 85 to 100 knots of wind shear at 500 millibars is expected, and that is some pretty strong wind shear across some of these areas. Now, I want to zoom in here because I want to show you all the differences between the models, because you guys could visually see a little bit of a difference between the Euro and the GFS. But just to hit it home here, the Euro actually has two low pressure systems that ends up developing here. And the reason being is because one actually drops from the same area to which this first low pressure system came from. And what this is going to do is this is going to kind of tug this low pressure system a little bit further back and kind of hold it back a little bit, well, as if you have someone on a rope and you're just kind of preventing him from continuing to move forward. So that's basically what this low pressure system is going to do as this one in the rear begins to kind of push on behind, whereas the GFS doesn't really show that a whole lot. You have a low pressure system that's a little bit further behind, but it's not as well defined. So you just have this one right here that's over the central plains. And that's the reason why it takes a little bit longer for this thing to kind of get itself organized. It actually takes a little bit longer because it only has itself for it to continue to intensify further. So now let's take the wind shear a little bit lower in the atmosphere to the 850 millibar level, which is about 1 kilometer above ground level. And you'll see as this progresses from Tuesday into Wednesday and Thursday, the wind shear intensifies rather significantly, and it actually develops your low pressure system here. You can see it's relatively well defined here on both models. You can see the general counterclockwise flow in the atmosphere from both models, and you can even see how significant that low-level jet is within some of these white areas. We got wind shear values in upwards of 70 to 85 knots, which is very significant as a low-level jet, and that is just adding to the enhanced wind shear that's throughout some of these areas. And this is also going to bring a lot of moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. A lot of this wind shear is coming from the south to the north. And you can see here from the moisture here, as this transitions from Tuesday into Wednesday, you can see that moisture return back into the United States. And this is our classic severe weather setup. We have our warm front, which is up to the top, our cold front, which is lagging behind, and then our dry line here, which is our catalyst for severe weather. Anywhere that is to the east of that dry line is where you could potentially get your severe weather at this time. And that is a big setup here. This is a very classic setup for severe weather. So something that we're going to have to continue to watch out for, especially if this goes a little bit more like what the Euro says. Now, the only way moisture actually gets limited from this event, and it actually doesn't do as well as what the Euro, and I'm assuming what other CAM models are actually going to forecast, is what happens a little bit earlier. That winter storm that I was talking about, look at how low the dry dew points actually surge down into the southern portions of the United States. We have relatively low dew points, as low as about 30 degrees in some areas here of Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, and stuff like that. So if those dry dew points continue to linger and that cold Arctic air continues to linger, then that could impact our storm as well. So we're going to have to see as to how significant this plays a role into how the severe weather setup could be. But regardless, man, if this does form here, this is going to be a severe weather outbreak more than likely, maybe even a tornado outbreak here as well. So this is just something we're going to have to watch out for. The days into which severe weather is possible is going to be the 16th, which is Wednesday, 17th, and 18th. All right, there could potentially be stuff on the 19th as well, but those are the main 3 days, and the 17th is the one that is really catching my eye. If that holds true, we could potentially be talking about a severe weather outbreak. Now, to emphasize how significant the dry line actually is, we're going to take a look at the 700 millibar relative humidity, which is 3 kilometers above ground level. I know I've been giving you all different levels of the atmosphere and stuff like that, but this is just to really hammer home as to how classic some of this system actually is in resemblance to previous systems. All right, so what you're going to see here is early morning hours of Thursday into the afternoon hours of Thursday, our low pressure system develops right around here. You can see these little circles, these little rings that are around each other. And you also see a lot of this dry air that's coming from Mexico. And what's happening here is it's taking that dry air and it's basically forming a giant line with that. You have a lot of moisture, which is where your thunderstorms are going to be, this band that's going to swirl on through, and then you have a lot of the dry air behind it that's going to confine it into an area. So that's where most of your thunderstorms are actually going to be. And there's actually two lines here of interest. You have one right here, which is out in front of the dry line, and then you have another that's right along the dry line. So potentially two separate waves of severe weather that could be possible according to the Euro right now. And just to hammer it home as to where the thunderstorms could potentially be, we're going to take a look at the instantaneous flash rate to show you as to where the lightning could be within an average of 6 hours. And here we go. You can see as we transition this from Wednesday morning to Wednesday afternoon, well, the coverage in lightning does increase. And as we head into Thursday, I mean, this speaks for itself. Very significant amounts of lightning across the board. And it's not just in one area. It's very much so widespread, which could indicate that we could have very wide range of severe weather that is possible. So it's definitely something we're going to have to continue to monitor. And of course, as this shifts from Friday into Saturday, you can see how the severe weather continues to push on through further and further east. So anywhere within any of those colors, you guys could potentially get some showers and thunderstorms, as well as the further south you are, the higher the probability you are probably going to see some severe weather. So it's something that you're going to have to continue to monitor, and I'll have some more information for you all in the coming videos. So please stay tuned to the channel, all right? We've been tracking this storm probably longer than anyone else has on YouTube. There's been some people that actually brought up the idea right around the same time that we have, but we've been going in depth in this system more than anyone else has been on YouTube. So if you want to continue to stay tuned to all the latest information about the severe weather, the winter weather, or whatever, please be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. That's the big thing there. If you want to stay up to date with the information as soon as it comes out, this channel is the place to go to, and we always upload towards the evenings, unless if we have to upload more than one video a day, which, you know, that could potentially be possible as we get closer and closer, because things could change rather quickly, especially as we get within 1 or 2 days of the actual event. Also, it would be a great help if you guys share this video with as many people as possible, copy the link, and either just give it to people on Facebook, just give it to people in a text message, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. Please be sure to share this information, because the more we actually get this video out to, the more we could potentially be getting this information to as many people as possible, and hopefully even saving some lives. And last but not least, please be sure to like the video so that we can spread this to more and more people on YouTube. That would be greatly appreciated, so that we can also get this information out to people who could search it on YouTube. And with that being said, that's going to be it for me. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, then please be sure to do all the stuff that I said before. And our Give It To Me Straight question of the day will be, do you think severe weather will be active even after this event that's going to occur into mid portions of next week? If you do, then please leave a comment down below. If you don't, well, still do so and tell me why, because that's going to be pretty interesting too. It's going to be interesting as we get into March. Could we get severe weather? Could we not? It's going to be a little close, all right? Some models are saying yes, some models are saying no. So I want to hear you guys' thoughts, all right? That's going to be it for me. I'll catch you guys in the next video, which will either be on Friday night or Saturday night. So stay tuned. Peace out, everyone.